Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito, and today I'm in Settignano at la Sosta del Rosselino, overlooking the hills of Florence. And I came here a few years ago to enjoy a wonderful dish of homemade gnocchi. And my friend Damiano is going to make them again for me today. And then we are going to go nella cucina, where we're going to be making gnocchi with spinach and ricotta cheese. That's it, real fast, real fast. Come on, get that baseball arm moving. Oh,
Ok.
okay. Non c'è ketchup.
No. Già vedi, ti fa la foto.
Basta? Sì.
Sono molto delicati.
Molto delicato. Grazie a lei.
Grazie Mariana, grazie a voi.
You know, my mother's favorite leftover sandwich. Come on, you're Italian. Isn't this beautiful? Look at how pretty this is. It's delicious. How do you like that? I think you're great. And now we're ready to do the twist. So, looks gorgeous, smells wonderful.
I use my hands.
I love this woman. Okay. When Michelangelo woke up in the morning, this is what he must have seen. Because as a boy, he lived in Settignano, a small town just outside of Florence. Today, it's the home of La Sosta del Rosselino, a restaurant and wine bar. You can come here and taste wine and nibble on cheese, or treat yourself to a wonderful meal prepared by Damiano Miniera, owner and chef, and my good friend. Okay, now we're going to make gnocchi the way Damiano makes it. Allora,
cominciamo con le patate.
sì, che tipo di patate?
La patata è a pasta gialla.
Sì,
Yellow.
ok, yellow potatoes he's using.
Yellow potatoes. Abbiamo visto che bolle nell'acqua per 14 minuti quando è di questa grossezza la patata.
Okay, so he boils the potatoes in the skin, doesn't peel them first, in water for about 45 minutes, and then
Se è più grande,
sì,
va bollita di più.
You know, if they're larger potatoes, you're going to have to cook them a little longer. Use a knife, stick it in to see if it's tender.
Poi la facciamo riposare dentro l'acqua dove ha bollito.
Allora, questo è il segreto.
Il segreto, sì.
Okay,
proprio.
so what he has to do now, after he boils the potatoes, is leave them in the water until the water is at, lukewarm. And then,
Adesso schiacciamo le patate.
all right, you peel the potatoes. And you put them through a ricer. Now, if you don't have a ricer, you're going to mash these by hand. Don't put them in a food processor because they would just become too gummy. Too much gluten will be developed. Okay, that looks great. Sì,
okay.
Allora.
E siccome
e non si usa
né farina e né uovo.
You don't use flour or eggs for this. Very interesting. Okay, then. Ma lei ha detto che non si usa farina?
No, scusi.
Sì.
This is a fecola patata
sì.
perché la patata è molto giovane.
Okay, he's using a little bit of potato starch, which you can find in your grocery store, because these are young potatoes, so they've got a lot of moisture in them. So he wants to dry them a little bit. So he's going to put a little bit, pochino, sì? Allora.
Poco.
Sì, poco. Sì, not even a teaspoon. Senza sale?
Sì, ora mettiamo il sale.
Sì. Okay, now he's going to put in a little bit of fine sea salt. Sì.
Rolling.
Sì, rolling. Oh, lui parla bene inglese.
No.
Sì, and now he rolls it into a ball in his hands. E non si usa la forchetta per formare
No,
i
perché
gnocchi.
questi sono gli gnocchi di Damiano.
Okay, so he's not going to do it the old traditional way, the way our nonas did it in the kitchen. He's doing it Damiano's way. Because this is a recipe that is una fantasia. It's really not a traditional recipe. It's his way of making gnocchi.
Mettiamo un po' di farina qui per non farli attaccare quando io lavoro.
So he puts a little bit of farina dura. This is durum semolina flour on the board so that the dough does not stick to the counter, and rolls it very gently under his hands. Meanwhile, he's got the water going for the gnocchi. And then he cuts it into pieces. And now he can boil them. But prima di bollire,
Sì. Ora
See?
Li mettiamo nella pentola.
Okay, so now he's going to put them in the
Importante,
water.
importante è metterli con la schiumarola
Sì.
e tirarli fuori tutti insieme o a poco metterli nel piatto.
Sì. It's important to put them in the water on a scoop like this because you don't want to just throw them in the water because they're very delicate, and then it's important that you take them out with the same scoop. Allora,
l'acqua bolle.
sì, l'acqua bolle. E quanto tempo ci vuole?
Half a minute.
A half a minute, mezzo minuto?
Half a minute.
A half a minute. Now that's not very long at all, so dinner can be on the table in no time. E che tipo di salsa si usa?
Con questi facciamo con un Grand Cru di pecorino toscano.
Oh, allora, pecorino toscano, va bene. And here we have some.
This is pecorino.
See?
This is a foglie,
See?
nose.
See.
No.
These are nut leaves. So this sheep's milk cheese, pecorino cheese, which is the major cheese of Tuscany, is wrapped in these nut leaves and allowed to age. Allora, sono pronti. See? All right.
One moment.
See, one moment. All right, now we want to get the sauce, which I was explaining.
Sauce, cheese.
All right, the sauce is this cheese, the pecorino that we mentioned, that has been melted with some whipping cream. Look at how beautiful that is, nice and smooth. E basta così. Basta così.
Black pepper.
Black pepper. I have my fork ready.
Finish black pepper.
Sì.
Ok.
Facile.
That's the one.
Allora. Perfetto.
Sono molto delicati.
Molto delicato. Grazie a lei.
Grazie Marianne, grazie a voi.
And now we'll continue the tradition of making gnocchi nella cucina.
Del Rosselino.
Sì.
Florence.
Everybody has their way of making gnocchi, and Damiano certainly showed us his way, only using potatoes. Well, there are as many versions of gnocchi as there are regions of Italy, and today we're going to make gnocchi from Tuscany. And to do it, you need to start with some spinach. And here I have about 2 pounds of fresh spinach that I simply wilted down and squeezed out the water, and now we want to puree this in a food processor. So I'm going to dump it right in there, and you want to really make sure that you get all that excess water out. Otherwise, you're going to be adding an awful lot of flour. So in a food processor, you just want to puree it up till it's nice and smooth. And that looks good, nice and green too. And then we're going to take this out and put it right into a bowl, because in Tuscany, gnocchi are made with spinach and ricotta cheese. So look at this gorgeous green color. Beautiful. And it's very dry, as you can see, and that's really important. Okay, so once you have the spinach, then you need to add the ricotta cheese. And for this, I'm using whole milk ricotta. If you didn't want to use that, you could use skim milk ricotta. And you want to drain that as well, because it tends to have a lot of water. So what I do is I put it in some cheesecloth, in a cheesecloth lined strainer like this. And that gets all the extra water out. You see that? So you want that to be fairly dry. So a pound of ricotta cheese, and that goes right in our bowl. Now we can get this out of the way. And we're going to flavor this with some mint and some other spices. So you want to mix this up. This looks good enough to eat just like this, doesn't it? Beautiful. So we want to add with this something that is a natural with spinach in Italy and in Tuscany, nutmeg. And here we have, about a teaspoon of grated nutmeg. So that goes in. And then about a teaspoon or a teaspoon and a half of salt. Mix that all in. And then you want 2 large eggs for this. You know, I don't know if you know this, but the word gnocchi means dumpling. And there are many kinds, as I started to tell you. In the north of Italy, you have pumpkin gnocchi. In the Rome area, you have semolina gnocchi. In Tuscany, you have spinach and ricotta gnocchi. So now you want to mix those eggs in really well. And I like to flavor this with some fresh mint leaves. So for this recipe, you want, about 12 beautiful looking mint leaves. And I went right over to my friend Donazia's garden and got mine. So here they are. And all we want to do is mince those up and put them into our mixture. Now when you make this up, you are going to have to refrigerate it because this is going to be a little soupy to work with. So you could actually make this mixture up the day before, put it in the refrigerator, and then you'd be ready to go the next day. So get the mint really minced up. And I got to tell Donazia, she's got some pretty tough looking mint there. Okay, so that's enough. About 12 leaves go in. Mix it up well. And now we have to add some flour. And this is the tricky part. This is the tricky part. We want to add also some cheese. So about, I'd say a half a cup or so of some good pecorino cheese. Or you could use a parmigiano if you want. And I like a little bit of white pepper in that as well. About 1/4 teaspoon. Isn't this looking good? And it's looking fairly dry, so I know I'm not going to have to add too much flour. When you add the flour, do it slowly. So for this recipe, you want about 1 3/4 cups, but you may not use it all. So here's our flour. And I'm not going to add it all at once, maybe half, and mix it in. And when you form these, you're going to do them either on 2 soup spoons, or you could do it the old-fashioned way using a fork. And you saw how Damiano made his by simply rolling those long ropes and then cutting them up into small pieces with a knife and leaving them just like that. And I was very impressed that all he used to make his gnocchi were those beautiful yellow-looking potatoes. And I think I need a little bit more flour in here. So you see, I'm not using all this flour at all. And I'm going to check to make sure I have enough flour by testing a few of these in some boiling water. You really don't want to go ahead and make up the whole recipe and cook them and then find that they're all going to fall apart in the water. So once you have it all well mixed, then you can give it a little test. So in a pot of water, and I have a pot right here, you want to just take 1 or 2 and just try it. Just try it first. So just take a small spoon and scoop up a little bit. Just scoop a little bit up, that much, and put it in the water. Put it right in there. And if it holds together, then you know that you have enough flour. If it falls apart, then you know that you need to add more flour. And I'm watching this little gnocco come to the surface, and I know that I'm not going to need to add too much more flour, just a drop more in this batter, and that's all I need. And then this can go into the refrigerator. And before you came over, I made up another batch that's been chilling. So I'm going to cover this now and get this in the refrigerator. And you have to admit, this is a beautiful color, and it's an interesting way to make gnocchi. So there is our gnocchi batter. Now we cover it, and in the fridge it goes. You're going to get about 40 out of a recipe like this, and this is usually served as a first course. Okay, we're going to leave that in there and work on the chilled ones. And here it is. Now look at this. Look at how nice this looks. Beautiful. And we're ready to form the gnocchi. Now to do that, you have to have 2 soup spoons ready, a little bit of extra flour if you need it, either on the board and on your spoon. And I'll show you 2 ways to do it. And you just gather up some of this and put it right on the spoon. You actually want it to take the shape of the bowl of the spoon, kind of like an oval shape. Use your hands. And then you can just slide it off into some flour. And that makes the shape of the gnocco. Or you could take the mixture with a little bit of flour on your hands, resisting the desire to add too much flour, and just form it in your hand, just like that, you see? Making sure that it has an oval shape. Now, before I do the other ones for you, I want to get the butter sauce ready. So we have 12 tablespoons of butter right here, and I'm going to put that into a small saucepan. 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We just want to melt that down. This is the sauce for this, and it's very easy. So the butter goes in, and with it, you want, about 10 fresh-looking sage leaves. Sage is one of those favorite herbs in all of Tuscany. So you want to add some sage leaves, about 10. So I'm going to add that into the butter. And once the butter is melted and the sage leaves are in, well then, you can just turn the heat off and just leave it like that, because now the butter, the sage leaves will infuse the butter, and you'll be ready to serve this after the gnocco are cooked. And that's all there is to the sauce. How simple can that be? So I'm going to let that sit now, all melted, and go back to working on those gnocchi. I'm going to do that one more time for you so you get it. So again, you take the soup spoons, and you just form that dough right to the spoon. You want to serve about, 4 or 6 of these as an individual serving. And then you just plop it off the spoon, and if you have to just shape it up a little bit, you can. Or take your hand, form it in your hand, giving it that kind of oval shape. So you could do it either way. So now I have a tray of those ready for you in the refrigerator. So let me wash my hands, because now I got to go over and get them for you, because it's time to cook them. So you want to have a pot of boiling water ready, because these cook in very little time. They take about 3 minutes or so. So, having been up early before the chickens, here are the others that I made for you. And you can make them ahead and put them on a flour-lined cookie sheet or bake sheet. Do not make them too far ahead of time. You can make the dough ahead of time, but don't form them too far ahead of time. Okay, then I can turn this off now, because we know our gnocco is going to stay together. You want a pot of boiling water. So in the water, you want to add some salt. So let's put in some sea salt, and then now you have to do this carefully. You have to do it carefully. You can't just plop these into the water. You have to put them in gently, because they're very, very fragile. So you get them in one at a time, and you saw how fast those potato gnocchi cooked up that Damiano made for us with that wonderful gorgonzola cheese sauce. That was so delicious. After these are in, we wait for them to bob to the top, and then we'll be able to sauce them. So now they're all in, and I'm going to put a cover back on that and show you the other way to make gnocchi. So let's just cover that. We're going to have to keep our eye on that. Now you saw how Damiano made his potato gnocchi, and if you didn't want to form them on the tines or by hand on spoons, you could do them on the tines of a fork by simply taking a small amount of the dough and rolling it on a floured surface under the palms of your hands, very, very gently. You want to create a log shape, like so. Do this on a cool day, when the dough is going to stay nice and cool in your kitchen. It's often better to do this on a marble board. So you want these about the thickness of your middle finger. And that looks a little thicker than mine, but it looks good. So now we can cut these up. You can cut them up into 1 or 1.5 inch pieces. And you can leave them just like this. This is another way of making gnocchi. Just leave them like that. That's perfectly fine. Or you could take a fork, put a little flour on it, and take these and roll them right off the tines. You see? Right off the tines of a fork, just like that. And this puts a ridge right here in the front of the gnocco, and it also creates a space in the back, and that is where the sauce is all trapped. So you want to keep replenishing your fork with a little bit of flour, and then just doing that motion ever so gently down the fork. So that's another way of doing the gnocchi. So now we've got to go back and see where we are, because I need to clean up and get ready to serve you what we have in the pot. So let me clean up a little bit and check those gnocchi. It's wonderful for company, delicious and easy to do. Gotta wash my hands one more time because they're a little bit sticky now. Okay, I think Damiano would like these, don't you? Let's see where we are. I think they're ready. So now we can fish them out, and for that you need to use a slotted spoon. And you see how light they are. They're very, very fragile. So I'm going to take them out. You want to shake out the water and put them right in to that butter sauce ever so gently. Ever so gently, because you don't want these to fall apart. And you want to have a platter ready to serve these on. So it's really important to get off all of that excess water. This looks absolutely delicious and so, so, so Tuscan. Okay, I think that's enough for you. Well, maybe, all right, you've been good. Two more. All right, so in the hot butter sauce they go. And now I'm going to turn that off. And now you want a beautiful dish to serve them on. And there's mine. This is worth all the effort. Taking those beautiful gnocchi out. Look at this. Look at how gorgeous they are. And look at how they stayed together. I'm just, very silent about this right now because gnocchi can be tricky to make. But if you follow these simple instructions today, you will have no problem. And I'm going to take all of them out because we're both going to enjoy these. And there's the last one. And now the rest of that butter sauce over the top. And not to be outdone by Damiano, of course, we have to have a grating of pecorino cheese right over the top. So there you have it. Classic spinach and ricotta gnocchi from Tuscany. Gnocchi di Spinaci e ricotta, made in the style of Tuscany. And here they are, all ready for the eating. And remember, they are a first course. So of course, I've made your plate all ready for you. And to go with this, how about a nice, crisp Pinot Grigio wine? And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao.
Italia.